Hello and welcome to Lead a Horse to Water, the equine training and behaviour podcast. I'm your host, Trudy Dempsey. I'm glad to have you along for this episode. It's a solo, which I quite like because I get to delve into my brain and pull out bits that have been bothering me for some time or things that I just want to share with you guys. And the focus in this one is going to be on cooperative care. Oh, I know, the eyes rise and we think, oh, you've done this before, Trudy. And I have, to be fair, I've talked about co-op care before. I teach a course on co-op care. I'm writing another course on cooperative care for trainers certification, and I am deeply into it, but for more reasons than just the fact that it's great for husbandry. Before I dig in, I just want to mention a couple of things. Coming up on the 12th of September and the 13th of September, that's a weekend 2-day workshop at Loddington Coppice in Northamptonshire. That's near Kettering. That's live, that's in person. Come along, Justine Harrison and myself will be there. First of all, we'll be looking at what we can, as a baseline, look at for any husbandry behaviour. So we'll be looking at body language, things that we need to be aware of, and things that we might later use as baselines, and also as ways to let our horses offer an opt-in or an opt-out. So the first day will be more general, and you can purchase that one alone. And day 2 on the Sunday, we're deep diving. If you think you know everything about cooperative care, come along. I can assure you, you don't. I'm still learning. I learn every time I go through something with a new partnership, a new horse, a new client. So this is a practical day. You're going to see Justine and I working with horses that we don't know and resolving situations, producing protocols, talking around how we can go about these things, developing opt-ins, developing alternative offered behaviours and opt-outs, and literally so much freedom of choice that the horse can really decide to cooperate, willing cooperation. We will also be, luckily, shown around Sam Tibbett's wonderful Loddington Coppice, which is where the workshop is. It's going to be just an amazing weekend. Sam is a veterinary nurse, and the amazing things that she's got set up at her place, she will share with you too. So come and join us. That's in person, 12th and 13th of September. You can find that at understandhorses.com. And also, just a reminder, the Professional Horse Trainers Forum is the 26th of September. It's online and UK time, British summer time, between 1 and 8 p.m. So that's 7 hours of CPD. We have an amazing lineup for you. Topics and speakers are amazing. We are going to be looking at, with Justine, who's our keynote speaker, modern equine training, practice and perspective. My lovely colleague, Kate Banfield-Rickard, is going to be talking about building confident mounting block behaviour. And before that, I'll be talking about how we can help create fantastic setups for our training. And that will link into Kate and her mounting block. Millie Payton is going to be talking about optimising learning, creating safe spaces for horses and humans. And she has a unique position on that. Of her day job as a mental health nurse is, really bringing a different level to that. She's also a positive reinforcement trainer and other things. The wonderful Krista Culbert is going to be talking patterns for communication, groundwork and riding. And as you all know, I just love a pattern. That's going to be fabulous. Some great videos, I'm sure, from Krista. And Naomi, who is a podiatrist, you've heard her also on the podcast recently talking about hers. Safe, stress-free hoof care. Who wouldn't like that? But as an equine podiatrist and clicker trainer, she has, again, a unique position that straddles both of those areas, which is really, really brilliant. And we also have the amazing Coraline Pluma. And she's going to be talking about your training days gone wrong. Well, we hope we never have those, but she's going to talk about how to avoid them and what to do if you still had one. So sign up for that pretty soon, because the early bird rate of £35 is going to be finished pretty soon. So I would get on that before it goes up to £50. But even at £50, that is an amazing amount of information. We will finish the day, well, there'll be Q&A between each of the speakers, and we will finish the day with a round table. So you can ask us things about during the day, but you can also come ask us anything about training or our own individual specialisms that you would like to. So do join us and come along for that one. We look forward to seeing you. And so now let's have a think about what I want to talk about today. And it's always hard when you're on your own. I'm great at asking questions. And so I feel like I should be asking myself questions. So here's the first one. What exactly is cooperation? So cooperation, in terms of the dictionary, to cooperate means that we will work with somebody else, with others, to reach some kind of goal, a shared goal, hopefully. And potentially also we might say that somebody is willingly cooperating. It's not just cooperation, they're doing it willingly, they're doing what's asked of them. And I think the other side of that idea of collaboration, assisting each other, willingness to collaborate and assist to that shared goal, I think we also have to think within that of choice, because when there are more than one individual looking at a shared goal, what is that goal? Are we sure that we are working towards the same goal? I often hear people talk about consent, and indeed, sometimes I have been known to title some of my talks in the cooperative care area as using consent. There is some discussion about whether assent is a better word, and people get a bit hung up on the words. So personally, I think nowadays my aim is more to look at cooperation. And cooperative care therefore means that there is an aim that we both understand, both us, the human, and the horse, that we both understand what the goal is. Of course, our horse can't understand that at the beginning. That's almost impossible for them to know unless they've had it done before. And if they've had it done before, it might be that they didn't like having it done. For instance, if somebody picked up their hoof and jabbed the hoof pick hard in to the frog, accidentally, I'm sure, but if something like that happens to a young horse the first time they pick up their hoof, they may never want to pick it up again. And we have to think about how important it is to a flight animal to have all 4 feet. That they're mine. I want to hold them under my control so that I can disappear when I need to, or use them when I need to. So first of all, we come along and stumble a little on that idea of a shared goal. So it's not completely shared, is it? Until we've explained clearly to the horse what all this means. And of course, we can use shaping to do that. We can show them at the beginning that it's just us coming close to them. And then it's us coming close, and we might actually ask you to let us touch your leg, and then you're maybe down as far as your knee, and then maybe your fetlock. And then we're going to ask you to change your balance a little and think about letting us pick that hoof up. And even then, we're nowhere near our goal, are we? We're nowhere near, can you actually pick it up, hold it up, and wait until I've done the thing, and then you can put it down. So there is a lot of shaping for us to get to a place where the horse actually understands and can willingly participate. So how can we mitigate a little for that, the fact that the horse does not have that same shared goal? I think for me, that's where true cooperation and these techniques that we have at our fingertips nowadays that are growing, particularly in the zoo world and in the dog world, and I hope are going to grow more and more in the horse world. We have the ability to offer the horse a voice to say, I can't deal with that anymore. I'd like to do something else, or I don't even want to be part of this right now. And to do that, we have this vast range of cooperation. So I think of it like a dial, and on the low end, the easy end for the human, not for the horse, for the human, we have the ability to observe body language and say, okay, you don't like that, I'll stop. I picked up your hoof and it felt like you wanted to take it away, so I've let you have it. You've opted out. And so a lot of people are looking at that now, and I'm really relieved that they are. There are still a lot, and when I say a lot, I say the biggest percentage of people who are saying, He's not having it back just because he wants it back. He has to wait. And you can imagine, it's a hot day here. I can imagine overheating pretty quickly. But yeah, it would make my blood boil. And I find that attitude really hard to deal with as a species who have to go and get medical care themselves and whose children get injections when they're very tiny. I think we've moved on from that. I think we've moved to a place where we can have some sort of communication with our dentist when our mouth is open and your dentist says to you, it's okay, raise your hand if you can't deal with this and I will stop. And if you have a good dentist, they might also say, could I come put my fingers, this tool's coming in now, would you be okay if I put that in your mouth? That's the good ones. I mean, my dentist's pretty good, but he doesn't quite go that far. So we can make it better for us. Why should a horse be any different? Why should we not extend that to an animal, that we say, look, this is the procedure, this is what it's going to involve. And in future, when you see this thing, you are going to associate it with the behavior that I ask from you, be that picking up your feet and having them picked out, be that putting your eye on my hand so that I can wipe it or put some ointment into it. So it's a kind of bargaining tool in a way that we say, come on, you do this thing, we give you some food for it. They get something at the end of it that makes them think, I might be able to opt back in for that, because why wouldn't we offer them something pleasant at the end of it? But that bargaining is not really what we're after. We want to dial that bargaining down as much as we can, because if we bargain for everything, if we cover everything with food, we never quite get to the spot that we want to, which is the horse understanding if X happens, Y will follow. If I say go ahead, that human will walk towards me with that hoof pick in their hand and they'll touch my leg, and later they'll pick up my hoof and later they'll pick it up and pick it out. That's what we need to build, that language that they understand how they get their pay. How do they get the reinforcer at the end of it all? So on that dial of, sort of good and easy for the human, the first step is to recognize the horse wanting out. Then we might think of how can we let the horse say they're ready to go. So often people will say, well, he walked in with me, he knew what was going to happen, so he's okay with it. And I would say that's one notch up on the dial from just listening to no. Only one notch. It's good. It shows that you're considering things, but that would be an initial kind of, okay, yeah, a little tip of the hat towards I know what's going to happen. So if your horse follows you to the cooperative care area where you usually train, where you usually carry out these procedures, if they follow you in there and they're really happy to do so and they're not holding back and they don't hesitate in any way, yeah, okay, I'll take that as a one notch up in the quality of your cooperative care. But even better than that, what if the horse can give you a really clear sign? Okay, I'm ready to go. And what if that can be based on what you tell the horse? Here's my hoof pick. You know what I'm going to do with this in my hand. And the horse says, carry on, you're good to go. And you walk in and you shape that behavior until you can pick a hoof out. The same with a needle. The horse coming to a particular space. Maybe you like to use a mat. I'm not a huge fan, but it's fine. It does give you more information. So if the horse walks off the mat, that's a clear no. And if they walk onto it, then that could be a clear yes. So it's entirely a good thing. But I think there are more subtle things that a horse might offer that they would have less problem offering, such as glancing at you. So when my horse has comfortably walked into an area that they like it because good things have happened there before, but they also know what happens there. So I'm not shocking them. I'm not taking them to a place where they've just eaten food previously and suddenly start doing training. So they know what's what. This is a place where we've done some training already, and they can therefore tell me with their behavior as we reach that point, okay, I'm a little reluctant on the threshold. I'm a little reluctant to come in and stand still. And I keep looking over there. I don't want to look at you. And then I can ask for that very first proper opt-in. And that could be the horse just turning their head a little towards me and saying, okay, what's next? You show me. at which point I can hold up a hoof pick so the horse knows what's coming, and then I can mark the horse for having stood still and feed them. Then I can do if X happens, Y will follow, and the horse will check in with me, and I'll say it's the hoof pick again, and I take 2 steps towards the horse. You get the picture. I'm not going through a whole shaping plan for how we begin to pick out feet or carry a syringe in our hand or an oral syringe. Every single cooperative care protocol just needs lots of breaking down. And for some, it needs even more. For instance, my little dog, he needs everything in such tiny, tiny steps. And when you do that, he flies, he gets it. And I've had horses who are exactly the same. You do too much, you do it too quickly, they're off. They can't absorb that. So be very aware of that. It's not just a study of one, it's a plan for one horse and only one horse and one trainer, one human, because we all are going to have differences in what we're capable of. So then we start to have a fairly secure, the horse wants to come into the area where they know training is happening. They're happy to check in and say, I'm ready to go. And then I can start to do the thing. At which point, should the horse in any way move or big swish their tail or anything minor, I'll stop and give free food. I've talked about that in a previous episode with Gabriel Lencioni. And it's just very easy. Just stop. Anything that you think is not a comfortable position, not a comfortable behavior, out. And it could be they're swishing their tail at flies, but better to be sure than to persist. So then we have those already 2 layers of choice. So we're really moving up the dial here in terms of gold standard. We've got an opt-out as well. And how can we make that really, truly gold with flashing lights and the most amazing thing in terms of cooperative care? Well, we can train an opt-out. And it always sounds really complicated. Oh, how can I train my horse to opt out? If I offer him food somewhere else, he's just going to want to go and get the other food somewhere else. We talk a lot about contra-free loading. I tend not to. Because I don't think people care, really. It's something that science-based trainers, I don't count myself as one, I count myself as just a trainer, but they like to bandy around, oh, it's contra-free loading. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's choice for your horse. And yes, contra-free loading is a thing. I'm not sure we've truly done the science with horses to know that it absolutely exists, but I know we have got some studies out there that suggest it does in a range of animals. So contra-free loading, yes, it is a thing, but I don't think it's something we need to burden a vet or a physiotherapist or somebody who is trying to learn cooperative care techniques with us. So ultimately, I have the ability to train and opt out with my horse. And I'm not going to go into depth in that because it's going to take up a whole podcast 10. Or come along and have a practical day with me, or maybe come along to my certificate course one day with Gabriel because we'd love to have you there. Sometime, maybe next year, I think that should be done. So think about how that dial moves. If the horse can show you clearly, I'd like food another way. I don't want to be part of this. So this is how it might play out. They come willingly into the area to train. They look at you and give you the opt-in. Okay, I'm good to go. It's the hoof pick and I'm taking a step. You do that and you mark and feed them perhaps. You step back and watch for them to offer the next opt-in. And they take a step to the side and wait at the opt-out, either a bucket, a mat, a position, whatever. And you know how hard that first opt-in was and how hard that first behavior was. So now you have this ability almost to mind read a horse, which is, off the scale in terms of exciting for me, for a start, but it is also off the scale in terms of choice that you can offer your horse. There's one other level that we can add in on that. And this just gives even more nuance. So you not only have an opt-out zone, you can also offer the horse a choice of other behavior. So I don't want the hoof pick thing. I don't want the needle. I don't want the vet approaching. But maybe I could touch a stationary target, or maybe I could step backwards, or maybe I could step to that side and walk onto a mat. There are so many levels, and everyone then starts saying, oh, this is way too complex. Nobody will be able to do this. Well, I can guarantee that if you can do this with a dog, if you can do this with an animal that lives in captivity, a wild animal living in captivity, I'm darn sure you can do it with a horse. And I see it, so I know that it happens. I train it, I know that it happens. And what I find that it does, it's not just about getting that willing cooperation, that movement towards that joint goal. In fact, it's way beyond that. And I'm going to explore this in the next year an awful lot more with what I'm calling horse-initiated training. I've mentioned this before in posts, but HIT, horse-initiated training, is all about every training, all the time, whatever we're doing, whether we're riding a horse, whether we're lunging, whether we're leading, whether we're doing pole work. It's about the horse saying, I'm ready. What's the game we're playing? And yes, I can do that. Or no, there's something else I can do instead. And it just gives you that nuance that floats my boat, floats my geeky, nerdy boat so much. So we now have pushed up to the level of platinum standard, where the horse can have more than one opt-in. They will always get food regardless of whether they offer the opt-in. So even if they don't opt in at the beginning, they're still going to get food. I'll take them to the timeout bucket or timeout zone. They learn that going to that place will result in food. They can also potentially offer me an alternative behavior, which shows me a level of, I don't need to do nothing, but I can do a thing, but it's not the thing you want me to do today. Imagine, what does that give you in terms of communication with your horse? And I think we've just been glossing over this stuff for too long. There are more and more studies coming out. Certainly Heidenreich and Peterson have released 2 recent papers. It's all, for me, just starting to move in that direction where we can no longer resist the idea that horses, animals in our care, deserve choice. It's not enough to stick a horse in a field. It's not enough to give them a little enrichment here and there, but to work together to build a true communication. Yeah, sure, you can do it with cooperative care. That's amazing. But how about, when you're choosing to hack out, if you want to do pole work, and yes, I know that takes them a little away from our agenda. If you want to be an eventer and you need to do fitting work, or you need to do jumping, pole work, whatever, and your horse says, well, today I'm not really feeling like the poles. Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? Anyway, I hope I've sown a seed that makes you think a little bit about how nuanced this can be. Imagine, I will end, I promise. but it just excites me so much, this stuff. Imagine a scenario where you are doing something pretty difficult. Maybe it's a blood draw and it requires the needle being in for a little longer. And it needs to be in a very specific spot. You can't just jab it into a lump of muscle. And imagine that your horse knows what that is. It's something that they have to have done regularly for tests. And imagine then that your horse says to you, that was hard. I saw the needle and I know what that means, and it's hard, so I'm opting out. And imagine then they opt back in for 1 and they keep opting out after 1. You don't need then to let them tell you they need to opt out. What can you do? You give them the opt out yourself. You say, oh, we're a 1 and out today. Okay, 1, now I'll give you a break. 1, now I'll give you a break. Imagine how that pushes us up in their estimation when we have that information. And then maybe when that behavior is better known and they know that it's quickly done, pretty painless, and they can deal with it and they don't need opting out. And we know, hey, we are really changing the way this horse feels around this procedure. And we know that because we see how many times they choose to opt out, the frequency that they choose to opt out. Imagine also, just imagine the behavior your horse can always do. Imagine that you do that cooperatively before you do any training in a day. Imagine you go in and groom your horse, and ordinarily grooming's fine. They enjoy it. And they opt out after you get to a certain point. You say, oh my goodness, today something is wrong. Maybe you're super tired. Maybe you've been bitten somewhere and your skin is sensitive. But just maybe that amount of communication will stop you going off and having the worst training session ever. The horse being really uncomfortable about training and you being cross at yourself because you think you're such a shit trainer. Imagine that level of communication. The only thing stopping it is you wanting to create it, honestly. And it's not a choice that I think many of us want to make, because once we've made it, once we've chosen to let our horses opt in and opt out, and we promise to honour it, because there's no point training all this if you don't honour it. Once we get to that point, our lives with horses are going to be very changed. In a very positive way, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, if you want to come on the 12th and 13th, do either drop me a message or get in touch via the course page at Understand Horses. Come to Northamptonshire. Let's discuss these things. Let's see how we can begin to train them, how we can put these steps in place and create this difference that we really do need when we're training. And I've got inverted commas there, training these procedures, because really it's not so much about training, it's about building communication and having good conversations based on choice. The other place you can find me is in my Positive Horse Club, and for £29 currently a month you get a Zoom where we can talk about all sorts of things. Sometimes it's a webinar based on a very specific topic. Other times it's just a general chat about training or something that you've brought up. You also get feedback on your own training. There are not many places where that is included. So within that £29 a month, you get feedback on your own training, and you get to be with a brilliant bunch of people. There's a whole back catalogue of things in there, and also discount on private training, personal training with me. Sorry, end of ad. I just get so excited about these things. Don't forget, check out understandhorses.com for everything on all of that. I hope I'll see you for the next episode, and I hope you enjoyed geeking out with me. I hope that you might have some ideas that you'd like to come and share on the podcast. If you've been listening to it and thinking, oh, no, I don't agree with that, or yes, I love that and I'd like to expand that. If you've got a really good topic that you think we could chew on for a podcast episode, get in touch. Until then, have a brilliant summer, and I'll see you soon.